Vinaka, Noai Mori, and warm Pacific greetings. Welcome to Module 1, Engaging Pacific Youth in Their Communities. Throughout this module, and during this first topic specifically, we will explore the concept of advocacy, how it applies to Pacific youths and Pacific youth workers in their communities, and why it is important. In future topics, we will lay out the basic steps for planning and executing youth-centered projects and initiatives, including strategies for communication, community organizing, and advocacy. Then we will turn our attention to the critical role of volunteers and fundraising, and how to successfully measure and report on the outcomes of a given project. At the end of this module, you will be able to clearly articulate the nature of Pacific youth advocacy work and be equipped with adaptable strategies to advocate for and with youth. Since advocacy can take different forms, there are different ways to understand and approach it. Advocacy means to publicly support something, anything. One can advocate for somebody else, an idea, a policy, a place, and so forth. In some countries, the word advocate is taken to mean a specific profession such as a lawyer, a social or youth worker, or other professional whose duty is to advocate on behalf of someone else. Most often, we think of advocacy, we are referring to situations of injustice, and we are advocating for justice. Justice, in this sense, is referring to the state of fairness among people in communities. Advocacy in action can take many forms. Advocacy in the context of social justice starts with simple questions, such as, what is the situation? Why are we in it? And what can we do about it? Education and learning can often preempt advocacy work. Helping to educate community members on the nature of the problem or goal can lead to understanding and long-term support. Educating Pacific youths on their rights, relevant laws, and legal and political frameworks is also an important component. Sometimes we may be tempted to start advocating for solutions to problems we do not fully understand, and to try navigating through complex political systems without a roadmap. However, when it comes to Pacific youth advocacy, it is critical to start by listening and trying to understand where Pacific youths are coming from and where they want to go. After listening and education comes mobilization and community organizing. These concepts will be explored in greater depth in future topics. We will also discuss how to bring about policy change, as well as the final stage, policy implementation and reporting back. In advocacy work, it is not enough to learn about an issue or even to gather people together to organize a change. One must prepare for often long political processes to eventually achieve policy and legislative change. Even then, one must remain vigilant to ensure the fair and proper implementation of the change initially sought. Growing one's competence as a Pacific youth advocate is essential in the role of a Pacific youth worker. You're quite literally working on behalf of and advocating for the interests of Pacific youth. To accomplish this task, you must have a deep understanding of what it means to become an advocate and how to do so effectively. Pacific youth advocacy is important because Pacific youth can regularly face unjust, difficult, dangerous, and even life-threatening situations in their daily lives. As Pacific youths are in a vulnerable position in society, they face additional barriers to justice and may well not be prepared to advocate for their own rights. Pacific youths must endure the long-term consequences of decisions made today. It is critical they have a voice in decision making, as well as they are able to participate in shaping the world they live in and will inherit. Without Pacific youth representation, it is less likely that the needs and interests of Pacific young people will be at the forefront of decision making. If Pacific youths do not have an opportunity to learn how to advocate for themselves now, by the time they are adults, it may be too late.